after a 3-month delay, your taxes are due July 15th. And joining me to talk about it is my favorite IRS tax man, Raphael Tulino. Hi, Raphael.
Hi. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so yes, people need to remember that we are in the midst of a pandemic, but your taxes are unfortunately still due.
Yeah, isn't that weird? It's a July 15th deadline. Imagine it's the middle of summer and there's a tax deadline. But yeah, pretty much every deadline that was April 15th per the law is now July 15th, and that's coming up. And the majority of people really have already filed if you look at some of the stats, but there's still a lot who haven't. And if you can get it done, best you can do by July 15th as normal as it were April 15th. If not, there's an extension which gives you 3 months, not necessarily 6 because April is 6 to October, but now it's 3 to October. But you take that extension if you need it, gives you through mid-October.
Okay, but the extension, I want people to understand, does not absolve you of the money you owe. It just gives you time to file the paperwork, right?
Correct.
If you qualify for the extension.
Time is not to pay, it's to file. So if you owe or you think you owe, get something in if you can't full pay, at least by the deadline with your return, and let's work something out over time in terms of an installment agreement or that kind of a thing. Because the penalty for not filing if you have a requirement, a balance due, is much greater than filing and not full paying. And so what you want to do is take care of that as best you can, and let's work it out. We understand that folks are in a different position as normal, so we're flexible enough, but the bottom line is at least file that return if you have the requirement and eliminate or minimize as much you can.
So, okay, so even if you can't pay your full tax bill, I want to be very clear with people. If you can't pay your full tax bill on July 15th, what are you supposed to do?
Well, file the return, pay something, let us know. Either set up a short-term or long-term installment agreement, 120 days or less if you can full pay, or longer than that. You can do it online if you owe $50,000 or less and stretch that out over, I believe, up to 60 months, if not 72. But all that information is on irs.gov where you can do that yourself. But at the very least, do that. Now, on the other hand, just about 3 out of 4, and that hasn't changed much, of all returns are refund returns. So if you don't file your return, what you're doing is just letting the government hold your money, so to speak, or your refund until you file the return and we process it. Now, that said, the next question is, well, I've already filed, darn it. What's taking so long? Understood. Lots of folks are in that position where refunds are a little more delayed than normal. Normal is about 3 weeks or so for most paperless returns. But in this case, especially paper returns, if you sent that in, let's say back in March or February, and we didn't get a chance to open it because we pretty much shut down like the rest of the world, then we're just slowly reopening the mail and getting those returns processed. So we're still asking for, if not, I guess, begging for patience. For folks to understand, we're working on it, doing the best we can as we struggle, not literally struggle, but balance, if you will, safety of employees to do what they're supposed to do in terms of getting returns and opening mail and doing all those things, and also getting them out quick in terms of the COVID-19 climate that we're all kind of in together.
Well, I mean, at what point do people have to start worrying about whether you guys got their tax return or not? Because I've heard anecdotally from people that they filed in February or an electronic, they've received nothing, or they've received something that says processing, or they've received a notice, like a notice to investigate it or look into it further. At what point should they be like, did they get it at all?
Right, that's a good question. So if you check where's my refund on irs.gov and it says we're processing it, at least you can pretty much see from there that we received it. And then the processing part might be just taking some time. Now, normally there are some reasons why your return or your refund might take longer than 21 days, and that's normal as well. It might hit a filter for ID theft, for example, and that happens a lot. Or something where the return is inaccurate, or there's an error, or any number of things that normally happen. Now, throw on top of that the fact that we are just getting going on processing returns and getting things out. Perhaps there's a letter that we have to attach to your return because we have a question, we couldn't get that letter out. All those kinds of things are bogging things down. So you apologize if that's the right word, but you also ask for understanding that we're doing what we can in terms of getting refunds out and getting people their money as quick as possible. But to answer your question, there are going to be delays, and all we can do is to say, bear with us. We apologize for the inconvenience, that kind of thing.
I had a question about from a social media user who is asking about the government paying interest to you, the taxpayer, if your refund is delayed more than a certain amount of days. Is that true? How does that work? Does it even happen in this particular quarantine and what we've all been dealing with?
Yeah, it's kind of a special thing this year. Yeah, we do pay interest if it's past generally 45 days. So if you think about that, that's June 1st. But the way we made the decision, IRS did with council and Treasury and all those approving things, is we're paying interest back to that April 15th deadline. So bottom line is you're going to see a little more interest paid by IRS to taxpayers for delayed refunds than normal. And that's because of the pandemic, of course, and that's because of the situation we're in. But yeah, that is true. The IRS is required generally by law to pay interest on refunds if they're over a certain amount of time. Pretty special deal here this year, but that's going to be the general rule. If you're looking for more information on that, you can ask your tax pro, because it gets a little complex and there's some details in there. But the bottom line is yes, there is some interest that will be paid above and beyond what we normally pay due to that determination this year in this special kind of circumstance. And
I mean, just generally, if you filed before what day and you still haven't received it, is that how it works? Is there a specific day?
It's the April 15th deadline, really. So if you filed
before April 15 and you haven't received anything still, then you might get interest as if it's from that point on. And it might be even a separate check if we've already processed it. And that interest, by the way, which we've been asked, yes, it's taxable. You'd want to include, but that's true. It's interest, and so it does go both ways, to be quite honest. But that's true in terms. And the interest rate, I believe, is somewhere around 3%. Don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere in that range. And that information is clearly available on IRS.gov. All this information actually is in detail, but for our purposes of our conversation, I'm trying to shorten it just to get the information out there. Okay. Really quick, I also want to ask, what if people still have not received a stimulus payment? Does that just mean they're not getting it at this point?
A couple things there. Yeah, it depends. Most have already gone out. It's like 159 million as of a month ago. So yeah, there's going to be some folks who are looking for those who are hard to reach. For example, the homeless population, for example, other parts of society that are hard to get a hold of. At worst, if you use our non-filer tool, we'll still try to kick it out to you before the October deadline of extension, October 15th. After that, if you have any claim to extra funds from the economic impact payments, you're going to put them on a 2020 tax return when you file next spring, and that's how you can reconcile that.
And then lastly, I want to just ask if people have questions, because they have a million questions. I know, because I get them directed at me. I'm like, I don't work for the IRS. And I'm wondering, where can people go if they have questions?
So IRS.gov, and I'm not going to toot our website too much, but I've been told, and it actually is true, if you log on to IRS.gov, it's not too hard to navigate the way it's set up to get answers to questions that you have. You're looking for information about coronavirus tax relief, and there's so much of that we didn't even touch on in terms of things that came along in the CARES Act, other than just economic impact payments. Can you file for free? When can you file? Refund information, FAQs, we didn't even get, there's all kinds. It's IRS.gov, that's the bottom line. Now, do we have limited phone service? Yes, very limited. Are the offices open? Pretty much no. So the answers you want and the information you want to receive with all the task-based tools on IRS.gov is where you want to go to get that information first, and give it a chance. It's a pretty easy to navigate website to get you the information you're looking for.
All right, Raphael, good to see you. Thank you. So there's always so much to talk about when we see you. Thank you.
Anytime, glad to do it, and be safe and enjoy summer.
July 15th, new deadline.